Throughout the East Bloc, under the time of communism, there was a clamp from above. But coming up from beneath, there were people who began to think differently, people who took their faith seriously, people who began to understand that their identity as a human being would spill out into their lives, the lives of their children. It would take the shape of literature, of art, of music. The writing of Alexander Solzhenitsyn in Russia was one wonderful example of this second culture. In each of these countries, there were people who were writing and speaking and composing music, and then sharing this in private venues with other people. Sometimes in churches, often in homes, but this second culture also was building the muscle of civil society. There were small organizations that began to spring up to work for changes in education, for example. What was growing through all of these endeavors was an awareness in the hearts and minds of people that they did not have to accept their identity from the state. And this second culture was giving them an opportunity to express a different understanding of man, of truth, of beauty, and of goodness. And I am convinced that it was this growth of civil society that made possible a peaceful revolution that otherwise could not have come about. Václav Havel was one of the more remarkable contributors to the second culture. He wrote plays. He had been a radio broadcaster actually during the 1968 invasion of Czechoslovakia. As years go by after that, he begins writing plays. Well, this would infuriate the communist authorities. They would throw him in jail. He would write another play. And he would get out and they would put it on, and that would infuriate other people, and they would throw him in jail again, and he would get out eventually with a new work. But he was one of the people who wrote about the moral component of man, and he put his finger on exactly the same thing that Solzhenitsyn identified, which was the culture of the lie. In order to live under communist rule, people always would say one thing and mean another. And he said that if one person is willing to stand up and with all of their might and all of their integrity proclaim the truth, regardless of what the consequences are, that it would move mountains. And in fact, that's exactly what he did. It's what Solzhenitsyn did. It's what John Paul II did. It's what people did in many, many countries when they simply had the courage to stand and speak the truth regardless of the consequences. So Václav Havel was one of the major figures in the Velvet Revolution, is what they called it in Czechoslovakia. And he eventually became their president after the implosion in 1989. Remarkable man, wicked sense of humor, and one of the great contributors to the literature under communism as well.